everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for a quick preview of all of the cards in my TBR Roll of Reads game. So as I'm sure most of you know, every month I play a game Roll of Reads, and this is how I decide what my TBR is going to be for the month. I'm not playing the game for July because I'm a team captain for the India Chords Readathon, which is a readathon that is all about reading independently published and written books. So it was just going to prove far too difficult to coordinate my Roll of Reads game with making sure that the books that I had to fulfill the prompts were also independent. So we're skipping it for July. But I thought that what I would do instead is I would go through and give you a quick tour of all of the cards that I use to give me prompts to decide what books I'm going to read throughout the month. So before I do that, I just thought I would give you a very quick explanation of the rules. If you have not tuned into one of my Roll of Reads videos, I will link the playlist in the description below, so please go ahead and check that out. Like I said, basically every month, unless there's some particular reason why I don't, I play my game Roll of Reads. I have updated it a little bit, so we used to have sort of rectangular cards. I now have square cards. I am going to update the board as well, so at the moment it's on a very flimsy piece of blue cardboard, but I'm going to update it so that it is on a piece of plywood, so it'll be less likely to be damaged. It is in the process of happening, but it hasn't happened yet, but it will definitely be done. So what I do is I have my board, which is 20 squares big, and then I have my cards like I've just shown you. We have around 60 odd cards here. Then I have 2 dice. I use a D12, so that's a 12-sided dice, to determine how many rolls overall I have to do and therefore how many books I have to read. And then I use the D20, which is a 20-sided dice, to determine what position on the board I have to choose the prompt from. Then I pick up the card that is placed on that prompt, and that gives me on that place, and that gives me the prompt, which then in turns helps me to decide which book I'm going to read. I do have some punishments and some rewards. So first of all, because if you roll a 1 in D&D, it's really not great, particularly if you're in combat. You basically fall over, drop your sword, something happens that takes you out of combat. So if I roll a 1, then it means I have to roll again and add an extra book. So if I roll 12 in my first roll to determine how many rolls I have to make, and then I roll 3 1s throughout the time, then you can see how that snowballs. Then I also have if I roll a 20, which is a natural 20 or otherwise known as a crit in D&D, and if I do that, it's amazing and you like double your damage. All sorts of incredible things happen when you play D&D. So I thought that that would be, essentially I can do whatever I like. So we'll still have a prompt card on the 20 space on the board, but I can choose to ignore it, or I can do it, or I can choose a buddy read if I already have buddy reads set for that month, or I can skip it completely. I can make it a mood read. Whatever I want to do. It just means that it counteracts that potential to have a 1. I do also have the new rule that if I roll the same number 3 times in a game, so if I roll 15 3 times, then I have to add another roll. And then finally, if I get the same card for the third time I get the same card of 3 different games, then I get, with the same prompt, then I can buy myself a book.
Hello, it's Editing Mel. I forgot to add the rule that if I don't at least start a book in the month previous, then I have to add another roll for that book in the next coming month. Back to you.
The general rules, like I said, all of the previous videos are in the description below, so if you want to go and check those out, see the gameplay in action, then obviously please feel free to do so. I do play this pretty much every month, so I'll be back in August. But now I'm going to go through the cards for you. So like I said, I have about 60. So the idea is that every single month I get my big stack of cards. I give a bit of a shuffle, which I'm not amazing at shuffling, to be honest, but you know, that's okay. Like so. Then I place, out of the 60, I place 20 down on the 20 space board. Then I use the D20 to roll, and whichever number I then roll is what the card I pick up. That gives me a prompt which helps me choose the book. Obviously I then replace it because I can roll the same number multiple times. So we have a variety of different cards here. The reason why I actually have changed the cards a little bit is because I wanted to add new cards, and the very pretty cards that I had previously I had got off a school computer, and although I'm sure that I could track it down in some way, I don't have access to that specifically, and it's actually going to be easier if they're going to fit in the size that's going to fit into a board. So it just seemed easier to have it as square. So I wanted to add a few different cards because I had kind of generic cards for different ways to get more diverse reading and stuff, but I wanted to be a bit more specific about some of them. So yeah, that's what I have done. Just a little aside, I was watching Jessie from Bow Ties and Books, one of their TBR videos, some brief time ago. I don't know when exactly, but a little while ago, and they have very, very specific TBR cards. I really think you should go and check them out. They are a great booktuber and they have some really cool content, and I really like their TBR cards, but it's just way too specific for me, so I've decided to be not quite that specific, but still a bit more specific when it comes to being a bit more diverse in my reading. So I'm just going to go through. Some of these will be very much self-explanatory. Some of them will possibly require a little bit more explanation, so I'm going to try and be super quick, but we're already at 9 minutes, so let's hope that I don't take too long. Alright, a standalone. I feel like that's probably fairly self-explanatory. A book that isn't in a series. Set somewhere you've been, so somewhere in the world that I've visited before or lived before. So I can do that in one of two ways. So I could say, for example, well, this is a book that's set in Western Australia. I live in Australia. Even though I haven't actually been specifically to Western Australia, it's still part of Australia, so I can count it. Or conversely, I can say, well, this is a book that is based in Melbourne. I've been to Melbourne, so I can count it that way. A graphic novel or manga. If you have been around for a little while, you would know that I don't tend to read either graphic novels or manga very much. I do want to branch out into that a little bit more. I have been trying to do so, but not really doing a great job of it. So hopefully this card will come up a bit. It has been in here, or I don't know if it exactly had it like that, but it has been in here for a little while and I haven't come across it yet, so I do need to make sure I shuffle a bit better, I think. But anyway, yeah, that one's there. There's no particular order to these, by the way, it's just what I'm grabbing. Dictionary word of the day, inspired. So I actually got this prompt idea from Darian Reads. Anyone that I talk about in this video, by the way, is in the description below, so please go and check them out. Anyway, Darian had this cool prompt, well I thought it was cool, whereby she looked up on her dictionary app what their word of the day was, and then she had to use that to get her to think of a book that it inspired. So I thought that sounded really fun, so thought I'd add it to myself. A new to you author. That's probably pretty obvious. A whole author I have not read yet. Inspired, a movie you've seen. So I'm constantly doing that thing of loving a movie and then finding out that it's based on a book and then wanting to read the book. So yeah, that's what that is. Sister picks. Either of my two sisters will get to pick me a book. Book into film club. So for those of you that don't know, I think some of you may not, I have an in real life book club that I run. We meet roughly every month, and it is based on that whole idea of how many movies are based on books. So we choose a book movie combo, read the book, and then watch the movie when we all get together and chat about what the differences are and so on. So a book that has been, by the time I do the next month's book into movie club, we don't always, it's not a calendar month that we meet up, so I may not know what it is at the time that I film, but it'll still be whatever it is. I'll leave a space for it if not. A pretty cover. Obviously that's very subjective, but a book I think has a pretty cover. Over 30 rep. So I do read quite a bit of YA and some middle grade, which is great, but it is nice to read books that feature characters who are closer to my age. So that's that one. A sequel. I'm sure I don't need to explain what that means. So this one says not set in the global west. So this was inspired by a video that I watched from Sajid, who runs the YouTube channel Books in My Social Life, and he was talking about how so many books are promoted when they are written and published by the global west. So North America, Canada, Britain, Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, places like that. Yeah, we're global Western countries. So he was talking about those books being more promoted and having better representation in terms of like from publishers and stuff. So I was inspired to make this prompt. So it's not, a specific country or anything like that. It's a very generic in a sense, but yeah, hopefully it'll inspire me to read books that aren't necessarily set in Australia or Britain or the US. By the way, there is a cat just here who's kind of attacking my hand, so if you see me kind of flapping around and whatever, that's why. Next one. 5 words or more in the title. Sure, I don't need to explain that. A retelling. So a retelling of another work of fiction. So it might be like ACOTAR, Court of Thorns and Roses, which is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, or it could be Pride by Ibby the Boy, which is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, or yeah, something like that. So something that is a retelling of a story that already exists. 5-star prediction, so a book that I think that I will love and give 5 stars to. Under 300 pages, a nice short book. New York Times best-selling author. So the book itself doesn't have to be a bestseller, a New York Times bestseller. The author who wrote that particular book does. So I changed that slightly. It did used to be a best-selling book, but yeah. Makes life easier a bit. Middle grade. Any middle grade. Any genre of middle grade. A translated book. So a book that was written in another language that isn't English and translated into English. Second chance, so a book that I have tried in the past and for various reasons put down. I'm going to give it another chance. See if it was just the mood I was in or whatever. She's now sitting just here and I have my computer just here and the screen's gone blank because I'm not using it, and so the cat can see herself. So she's watching herself move around on the screen. Dear. Cats, huh? Books set to expire. So this one will last me until January next year. Whether or not I continue after that, I don't know. But I will link it in the description below and in the eye so you can go and check it out. I made a video that was based on a video that I saw Becca from Becca and the Books make in January, which was called These Books Will Self-Destruct in a Year. So if I don't read them in a year, then I have to unhaul them without reading them. So I can read them and unhaul them because I don't like them, or I can read them, DNF them and unhaul them because I didn't like it, or I can read it and love it, but if I don't at least try to read it before January 2022, then I have to unhaul unread. So I've added this one into the game just to help me to get to those. TBR veteran. Seen this on a number of different people who have these TBR games, who have a TBR vet. So it basically just means a book that you've had on your shelf for a really long time that you haven't got to yet. A gift or from a subscription box. So that should be fairly obvious what that means. A favourite author's first book. So the first book ever written by an author that I love. This can be a reread, a memoir, a hyped book. So a book that I'm usually going to have them being hyped on BookTube, but it could just be that really hyped up on my library's website or something like that. It's probably going to be BookTube though, but yeah, hyped book. Parent picks. So either of my parents can pick a book for me. Set in Australia. So the book itself has to be set in Australia, but doesn't have to be written by an Australian author. An ebook. A black author. Over 500 pages long, so I've got quite a few tomes, particularly fantasy, that are over 500 pages long, like my Brandon Sanderson's here. So yeah, there's that one. Another booktuber's favourite book. So I can choose any booktuber that I like for this one, but I have to choose their favourite book or one of their favourite books. If they're anything like me, they don't have one favourite book, but one of their favourites to read. A recent purchase. Should be fairly self-explanatory. LGBTQIA+ rep. adapted into a TV show. Again, this could be a reread if I want to, or it could be a TV show that I really want to watch but I want to read first, or it could be a TV show that I've already read but I want to read the book now. TV show I've already reviewed. A Muslim author, a mood read, so that means throughout the month I pick whatever I'm in the mood for. A colour wheel picks, so on the screen at the moment I will have put a colour wheel which is on my phone, which I will use for this prompt. So I will spin, so I'll get this prompt, spin the colour wheel, and then whatever colour I get has to be on the cover of the book. My camera is flashing at me. I don't think I'm going to get through this many cards before the battery dies, so I'll be back in a moment. And I'm back. Alright, next one. Islamic inspired, so a story that is inspired by something to do with Islam. So it could be something to do with, it could be a fantasy that is inspired by some history of Islam, or it could be Islamic peoples, or it could be inspired by Islam as a religion. It's going to be up to me to interpret at the time, but inspired by Islam. Rowan picks, so my partner Rowan gets to pick a book for me. Set somewhere I've never been, or it says on here you've never been, but set somewhere I've never been is obviously the opposite of set somewhere I have been. So in this instance, going off the example I gave before, I could say, well, yes, I live in Australia, but I've never been to Perth in Australia, so I can read a book that's set in Perth. Or I could say, well, I can read a book that is set in Canada because I've never been to Canada. Treat your shelf, so I can buy a book and read it in that month. An award winner, so a book that has won an award of some description. There are multiple literary awards around, so yeah, an award. Young adult, a Twitter poll. So how this will work is I will put a poll on Twitter. I'll probably put a poll for 3 or 4 books, and then everyone on Twitter will choose, but I'll let you guys know in the video which books they are and where to go to Twitter to find it, and then you can vote, and I'll let you guys know in a vlog, or yeah, in a vlog. Subscriber's choice, so this one again, similar thing, I will have 3 or 4 books that people can choose from, and then probably say by the time the month starts, because I usually put these up at least a few days before. So by the time the month starts, whichever book has the most number of votes will be the book that I read. Published before 1900, so a classic of some description, a First Nations author. Later you will see I do have a card which is written by an Australian Aboriginal author. Australian Aboriginal people are First Nations people, but there are other First Nations people around the world, so I included this as well. So I could choose an Australian Aboriginal author, but I could also choose someone from another First Nations community. A short story collection. I made some of the writing, some of the font different colours, so don't know how easy it is to see, but yeah, hopefully there you go. A short story collection. Genre wheel pick, so similar to the colour wheel, I have same app, a genre wheel, and then it will pick the genre. I will then pick the book in that genre. A borrowed book, so this could be a book borrowed from the library or borrowed from a friend or a family member. Favourite colour on the cover. You can probably tell purple is a favourite colour of mine. My other favourite colour is actually blue, so either of those colours on the cover. I want to say now it'll have to be a majority. I hope I remember that. Published the year you were born. I was born in 1980, so I have to read a book published in 1980. A non-fiction. It still could be a memoir. Mentioned in the Gilmore Girls. So I feel like this might need a little bit of explanation, but basically, if you haven't seen the Gilmore Girls is a TV show about a mother and daughter, and the mother had the daughter when she was 16, and it starts when the daughter is turning 16 herself. It is about their relationship and their kind of growing up together, I guess. I really enjoy it. I think it's a really, really great show. Rory, the daughter, is very, very well read, very intelligent, very academic, and yeah, very well read. There's a huge list of books that Rory talks about. They don't have to be books that she's read, but there are loads of books mentioned for various reasons. Most of them because Rory's read or reading them, but sometimes for various other reasons. So a book that is mentioned in the Gilmore Girls. Nephew picks. So my nephew gets to pick. Plus size rep. So again, I don't think I need to give too much explanation, but a book that features plus size representation. Start a series, a non-human main character. So I got this one in my last TBR game and I used it to choose one of the Akatar books because most of the characters are fae. So it could be like that. I could choose a fae, or I could choose a book that features a dragon, or whatever I want, as long as they are non-human main characters. A library book, mythology or folklore inspired, so any mythology or folklore. Australian Aboriginal author. Join an online book club read. So this could mean, for example, at the moment there is a Sabah Tahir, the Ember in the Ashes series read along happening, which I am trying to participate in. I haven't got to the second book yet, which is what we're supposed to be reading in June, but hopefully I'll read it soon. So yeah, join a read along like that, or a book club. So there's many different booktubers that run various different book clubs. So my friend Lana from Lauren Lullabies runs book club. I can't actually think off the top of my head what other book clubs there are, but I know there are heaps. So Mary from Mary Among Stories, along with Hilary from Melted Books, and I'm not sure who else, but they have the Tea Dragons. There's heaps. Space Sirens book clubs. There's heaps. So anyway, I will choose a book club to join in with for that particular month, and I will probably choose it based on the book. But yeah, a reread set in another world. So this is going to usually be based at fantasy or sci-fi. So set in Narnia or set on Jupiter. A friend picks. This could be any number of people. Last time I chose my friend Alison, but who knows? It could be you. Asian author, a trans or non-binary author or character. The cat's pick. Haven't actually done this one yet. Haven't quite figured out exactly how I'm going to do it, but I'll figure out how to get the cats to pick. African inspired. This could be, again, similar to what I was saying before. So it could be African folklore, history of somewhere in Africa. I do understand that Africa is a huge landmass with many different countries and cultures. Yeah, so I do understand that, but like I said before, I'm not going as specific as Jessie from Books and Bowties. They would have potentially Nigerian magical realism. I feel like maybe I could make some later, but for the moment, yeah. A buddy read. I often plan buddy reads in advance, so it'll be good to be able to add a buddy read to my TBR. Mental health rep, a one-word title, an indie self-published book, disability rep, out of my comfort zone, so like horror is out of my comfort zone. Neurodivergent rep, so this could be that the author is on the autism spectrum, or a character is on the autism spectrum, something along those lines. And finally, another booktuber's TBR game. So I can either play their TBR game for that prompt. So for example, I know that Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin does the Play Your TBR Right, and I've seen a few other people do a version of that on their own channel, so I could do something like that. Or I could include the prompt from one of their TBR game. So if I was choosing Jade from JD Ray Reed's TBR prompt, TBR game, I could just go with her first roll and do that way. I haven't yet figured out how to include, so if I was doing something like using what Jade's Trivial Pursuit, TBR Pursuit, at what she played the previous month, for example, I'm not sure how to include a clip of hers. So if you know how to do that, if you could link in the description below if it's possible. But yeah, otherwise I'll just deal with that as I come up to it. So those are all of my TBR game cards. So like I said, the TBR game is called the Roll of Reads, and that's because I roll my D20 to find the prompts, to then find the books. Yeah. Those are all my cards. Please comment below and let me know what you think of all the cards. If you have any suggestions of any cards that I could potentially add. I love creating the prompts and coming up with different ideas, and I'd love to know what you guys think of some of the ideas as well. And if you have any suggestions, like I said, that'd be fantastic as well. So please do comment below and let me know any of those things. That would be great. Also, if you have any recs for any of the prompts, any book recs, that would be fantastic as well, because I'm always on the lookout for new books, particularly some of those books that go into kind of more representation and diversity. Yeah. So do comment any and all of those things. If you would like to leave me a comment and you don't know what, then please leave me some game type emoji. So any game emoji, it could be, you know, the tennis racket thing, or it could be cards, whatever you think is appropriate. That would be absolutely fantastic. All of my social media details are in the description below, so if you'd like to go and follow me on any of those platforms, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. And yeah, thank you again so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.